Tucker Carlson has been in Hungary having a nice little Hungarian adventure, and it's actually quite nice, so I thought we'd go through it. So, First thing here is to talk about Hungary itself. So Hungary's Prime Minister Viktor Orban, their party, the country nationally in the way they do things, has been touted up by the right wing of the Western world, let's say, who look to them with envy of their border policy, and so on and so forth. So you can see here just a clip to explain that sort of thing. Donald Trump with Prime Minister Viktor Orban. You're respected all over Europe, probably like me, a little bit controversial, but that's okay. You've done a good job and you've kept your country safe.
Well, I mean, at least the final say he kept his country safe. Yeah, he did.
From mass migration, that's the implication here, in the same way that Trump was the man who built a wall.
But also the predatory nature of the sort of internationalists who want to, put the SJW ideology in his country and things like that,
But also national parliaments are not important, only international norms.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
That sort of thing.
Yeah.
And so I don't really know much about Hungary. I don't speak Hungarian, so I'm not one of these people who's wanting to jump on to be like Viktor Orban, great or not great, I don't know. But I decided to go to Amnesty International's website to talk about this, because Amnesty International, scumbags, I'm just going to say front up, because of their stance on Count Dankula. They told Count Dankula that he wasn't being infringed on his free speech rights for being prosecuted for a joke, because he was causing harm, presumably, to the pug. I don't know.
Yeah, he's a racist against pugs, yeah.
I hate them for that, and I'm never going to forgive them for it. But okay, we'll take their opinion on this, because I imagine it's not going to be glowing of Orban's government. So what do they say about him? In March, Parliament adopted the Bill on Protection Against COVID-19 Pandemic. It extended the government's power to rule by decree by absolving it from parliamentary scrutiny.
Yeah, okay. Like over here?
Yep. Without providing a clear cut-off date.
Just like here?
While the bill was replaced in mid-June, the government continued to uphold a set of transitional powers, allowing the restrictions of human rights, such as the right to freedom of peaceful assembly and curtailing access to asylum. Just like every country on Earth. So, sorry, that's not too scathing. The Americans survived that better than we did, with the just massive grab of power by the executive away from the legislature. In September, the European Commission published the first rule of law report, noting serious concerns regarding Hungary. They don't list them, so I don't know what to say. In May, Parliament prohibited the legal gender recognition of transgender and intersex people, requiring the registry of sex by birth based on biological markers and chromosomes, which cannot be changed at a later stage.
So they've got a common sense approach to sex and gender.
Right, that's a bridge of human rights. Right. This means transgender people can no longer change their sex, not gender, sex, on official documents and certificates to reflect their gender identity.
But gender identity isn't listed on official documents.
No, sex is.
Yes.
You get a passport.
That's immutable.
Which also why they can't change their sex on gender. They can't change their sex on official documents to reflect their gender identity.
No one can.
I don't know who proofread this, but Jesus Christ.
How's that oppressing trans people? No one can do that.
Yeah, so not really sounding too different or actually wrong in this particular case. But then there's the one that made me wonder. So in July, the editorial team and nearly 100 staff journalists resigned from Index, the country's largest independent online news portal, in response to the dismissal of its editor-in-chief. The editors had publicly announced that their independence was in danger following the takeover of the portal's advertising branch by a media executive with close ties to the government.
Right, but that's not... The government didn't force them to resign, right?
That's not how that's written. I
imagine they would have said, if it was Viktor Orban's government has suppressed journalists and, abolished their jobs or something like that, they'd just say it. They wouldn't cover for him.
I don't know why Amnesty International would cover for them. It doesn't make any sense, but whatever. I mean, whatever their problems are, this isn't Cuba or China, for Christ's sake. It's.
But but how did Orban do that? That's the question.
Anyway, so also there's a claim that from people who don't like Tucker Carlson visiting Hungary, that he's a dictator. I decided to just look up the elections in
before
Hungary.
we go on, I've looked this up as well, and I actually hate this. Yeah, I absolutely hate this. I just want to vent my spleen. I hate this claim because it's so lazy, right? Like, there are genuine people around who are actual dictators, and 0 of them have been elected to positions of power. 0 of them spend any time in opposition. Carry on.
When was the last time the Workers' Party of Korea was in opposition?
Exactly. The fact that there are multiple parties that can gain the government in Hungary shows that it's not a dictatorship. But anyway, sorry, carry on.
But otherwise, it would be the elections. So the first time Viktor Orban came to government was in 1998, and he formed a coalition, which is not usually what dictators do. And then in 2002, the next one here, he lost. and the opposition made a coalition, Socialist Party.
Just to be very clear, dictators don't lose elections.
To socialist coalitions?
To anyone. To anyone. Dictators don't lose elections. If they have elections, 99% of people somehow vote for them, weirdly enough. If there's somehow enough people to vote for the other party, again, what other party in a dictatorship, and the guy can spend time out of government, out of ruling the country, then he's not a dictator. Don't know how to describe it any other way.
So the Socialist Party were in power for 8 years and then got kicked out because of corruption and the financial crisis.
Sensible.
And so the next election, Orban's party won back in. They won a majority. And then they won a majority in the other elections since. And there'll be an election next year to determine who's going to be in charge. This doesn't look like a dictatorship to me. I'm sorry. I don't know why people are whining at it. Yeah.
But they always use the term autocrat. And it's just like, look, listen, he's just not an autocrat. Like, there are lots of people who are or were autocrats, but he's not one of them. You know, you can say you don't like him all you want, and don't get me wrong, there, you know, if I don't like the socialist, politician they elected because he's a socialist, but I'm not going to call him an autocrat.
I'm going to call him a dictator.
No, because he's not.
He's not in power.
Exactly. It's just so dishonest.
Ugh. But anyway, I thought I'd also just go to Vox because, I mean, this was pretty lackluster and just see why Hungary bad. And in here they say Orban and his allies gerrymandered parliamentary districts and packed the constitutional court.
But just like the Democrats want to.
Biden's like, don't look at me. They seized control over the National Elections Agency, the civil service, and over 90% of all media in Hungary. What was the media coverage of Trump? What was the percentage that was negative?
Well, 90% negative, plus.
Civil service, bastion of right-wingers.
95% remain.
Yeah. They used economic regulation to enrich themselves and punish their opponents. Everyone in the West is doing this right now. I'm sorry to say, the Conservatives are also guilty of it in this country. Yeah. Persecuting a major university, for example, until it was forced to leave the country altogether. Which university?
Oh, was this the Soros University?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, they don't mention that, yeah.
Yeah, well, that's good.
Interestingly.
George Soros probably shouldn't be operating universities in your country because he's clearly someone who's trying to undermine the integrity of your state.
Yeah. So they also say that Orban won re-election in 2015.
Like every dictator.
And 2018.
Typical dictators.
In votes that were formally free.
Which is how you ended up with a socialist government in the interregnum between...
So it was formally free, but in no sense fair. Right. His party benefited from massive resources advantages, backing from government-aligned media.
Oh, wow. Joe Biden's just like, Christ, shut up!
And rules designed to tilt the playing field.
Oh, my God. Oh, yeah, that's bad when Hungary does it.
Who changed the rules running up to the election in the United States?
Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Late ballots.
The
voting ballots.
The arbitrariness, the mail-in, the expansion of the mail-in voting, and the after the period when they're supposed to have been taken in.
The structural changes that Hungary's government has engaged in, and no one else. Right. In the piece about the university, that's George Soros as well, the author says that there existed pressure to make sure that leftists couldn't thrive in the, quote, development of a quietly... So, to get rid of the leftists, they had gone a development of a quietly repressive system that I've termed soft fascism.
Well, I mean, we could literally say that. That could be said by the Islamists, by the Nazis, by all of these like radical groups.
We don't even have to do that because, I mean, he's saying just to be a leftist in Hungary is to exist under soft fascism because you're pressured out of society. Should we call it Mr. Trump or tweet at him? I suppose not.
What about the other MAGA people who have been fleeing from social media platform to social media platform because, I don't know, the powers that be have been exerting kind of soft fascism over, I don't know, say Parler and various others, Gab, anyone else?
But anyway, this hatred is... disproportional, let's say. I looked at the worst examples, the people who wouldn't like him, and I'm sorry, it's just not enough for me to be like, yeah, this is obviously a terrible move for Tucker. So what has Tucker been up to? So let's go to the next link here. Well, he's taking a look at the borders, because I mean that's what you would do.
Yeah, he took a holiday to Hungary and is broadcasting from Hungary at the moment, isn't he?
Yeah, it's really weird. So let's play the first clip of him giving the geopolitical setup of Europe and why he's gone there.
Huge waves of human migration really are the biggest story of the age we're living in, and they will certainly define the future. They've accelerated for a couple of reasons. One, it's very easy to travel from one end of the globe to another, easier than it's ever been in human history, and cheaper. But for another, a lot of the world is getting less stable, and in part that's the fault of the West. Ideologues in this country, some of whom now work at the Biden State Department, decided to overthrow the government of Iraq. That caused a domino effect of instability throughout the region and massive waves of human migration. Hillary Clinton decided that for some reason we had to kill the leader of Libya. That started a civil war in that country, and again, more migration. And then for the last 15 years, again, ideologues in Washington have pushed more war in Syria. So all of that had effects. One of those effects back in 2015 was the movement of more than 1 million people from the Middle East and North Africa, and in some cases sub-Saharan Africa, into Europe. Now, Europe is controlled by the EU, which is effectively controlled by Germany. No one says it out loud, but really it's the German Empire. And at the time it was run by the German Chancellor, Angela Merkel, and she decided to keep the doors open. She said that accepting more than 1 million migrants in her country was not a big deal at all. Quote, Germany is a strong country. We will manage. Well, of course, she was completely wrong. That decision changed the nature of Germany forever, caused a massive crime spike. Yes, that's true and proven. And in general, disrupted the entire region. It's not clear who exactly benefited from that, even the migrants themselves.
Yeah, perfect.
He built a wall.
Yeah, absolutely. Every point completely correct.
Yeah, what is it? The schaffen das.
Yeah,
the little Merkel thing is just like, oh, we'll just manage.
And then when it became unmanageable, she was like, well, other European countries need to do their part and take some of our migrants. Like, do we?
Do we, bucko?
Yeah.
Sounds like they're not our migrants. They're your migrants, mate.
Yeah, exactly. Sounds like it's your problem. Also, we're leaving the EU.
Yeah, the only country that did accept migrants, for foreigners who might not know, was Portugal, because they got paid per one they took. And as soon as they arrived in Lisbon, the Lisbon government was just like, we're not giving you any benefits. Bugger off back to Germany. And they did. They just left. So the Portuguese just ran a racket throughout the EU, just be like, yeah, send more migrants, we'll send them back.
That's right. You take that German money and you don't apologise for it. But I mean, they were threatening...
The oldest ally.
Yeah. Well, no, it is. Oldest alliance in the world. That's why big up to Portugal. But like the Polish refused to take any, and they were threatening them with legal action, weren't they? And various other kinds of, pressure. So soft fascism, we could call it.
So Orban's government decided that they just would go, nah, bugger off. They weren't really trying to come to Hungary, I'll be honest. They're trying to go to Germany because wir schaffen das.
Because the Hungarians weren't going to give them free money.
But so what did they do? And this is why Tucker went. Let's play.
He built a wall, and today we went to see it. We took a military helicopter down to the southern border of Hungary, right where it borders Serbia, and we looked at this Hungarian wall that has effectively ended illegal migration into the country. And we found a couple of things. For one, it's not actually a wall. It's a chain link fence. It's very simple. And if you sat for the last 5 years and listened to American experts debate how it's impossible to stop immigration with the wall, no matter how high tech, you learned that that's a complete lie. All you need is the will to do it. Chaos creates humanitarian disasters. That's true everywhere around the world, and it's true particularly on borders, and particularly on our southern border, where there are people suffering and dying because the Biden administration has abetted, in fact, welcomed chaos. But we didn't see that today. We saw order and clarity. You are not allowed to come to Hungary illegally. While we were on the border today, the Serbian border in Hungary, we saw two people who attempted to come illegally. Both of them turned out to be from Syria. And we watched what happened when they were apprehended. It was a very straightforward process, so straightforward that it was a little confusing to watch. They came over the border. They were immediately picked up by Border Patrol. They were brought to a detainment area. They were treated politely. We were there the whole time. They were photographed. They were searched for weapons on the outside of their clothing. And then they were escorted through a door, and we followed them. We thought they're going to further processing or to meet with their attorneys or some Soros-funded NGO, and then moved into some other part of Hungary to stay there forever, at least a few years. But that's not what it was. That door was the border. And as we followed them through, they were escorted back where they came from, into Serbia, and they can apply for asylum somewhere else.
That's great.
Beautiful. I mean, that's how borders should work.
Yes.
I can't get any more clear that that's what should be done. Priti Patel, Mr. Biden, the United States, everywhere around the world, that is the solution. And I don't know why it's not obvious. That is so simple. Just bye-bye. Yeah. Go back now.
You're not our problem. Go away.
You clearly came from Serbia. Serbia's not a war.
Yeah.
Go back.
For once in its existence, Serbia's not a war.
Yeah. But one of the things I found interesting was the response from the government when Tucker asked them. So let's play this where he says they just say, we're a serious country.
That straightforward immigration policy, no, you're not allowed to come here illegally, I'm sorry, this is a real country, we have laws, works. And it doesn't require a GDP the size of the United States' GDP. It doesn't require high-tech walls or guns or surveillance equipment. All it requires is the will to do it. And as we watch this happen, we said to a Hungarian minister who was standing there, it's hard to believe that's your policy. When you come here illegally, you're just escorted out politely. And he said, quote, we're a serious country. How embarrassing to be an American in a conversation like that, to realize the greatest country on earth is not on some level a serious country because it allows the chaos that inevitably occurs, the human suffering that inevitably occurs when you open your borders.
Well, perfectly right. Like, the Hungarians have got us. It's an embarrassing, not as an American, but as a Westerner in general.
As a Brit, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, look what's happening. I mean, I don't know why the government just doesn't just dump the people back on France. So exactly the Hungarian border policy, just like, no, goodbye.
To be honest, if the French won't pay ball, it's just like, well, what are you going to do? Declare war on us? You're not going to do that.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? Because the French are obviously sending them as well. They're not getting all these boats and life vests and all this from Amazon or something.
I'm getting very close to just thinking, you know what, just start a little bit of a conflict there with them and just see what they do. What are they going to do in response, really? They're not going to really escalate it to anything serious.
What, over the migrants? I can't imagine they would.
No, they'll get all pissy about it and then they'll give up. Anyway, but I just wanted to mention, of course...
Literally the history of French warfare. Getting all pissy about it, then giving up.
So
just teasing French.
Just wanted to mention the Twitter obviously decided that speech was sensitive content.
Of course it is. I mean, I suppose if your default state of affairs is literally hundreds of thousands of people can come here and we will do nothing at all about it, we'll just release them into the country, then I suppose that would be horrifically sensitive for you to hear.
So Tucker went on to do an interview with Viktor Orban, if we can get the next one up. There's also the full version in the next link, just in case anyone wants to watch it. I watched a fair segment of it. He's a very interesting guy. Again, I don't speak Hungarian. I don't know anything about Hungary, his government, all the rest of it. But there was some really good bits, and I'm going to play the best bit I found. Let's play.
Many European countries decided to open a new chapter of their own history of the nation. They call it New Society, which is a post-Christian, post-national societies. They believe firmly that if different communities, even huge number of, let's say, Muslim communities, and the original inhabitant, let's say, Christian communities are mixed up, the outcome of this will be good. There is no answer whether it will be good or bad, but I think it's very risky. And the chance that it will be not good, but it will be very bad, is obvious. And each nation has the right to take this risk or to reject this risk. We Hungarians decided not to take that risk, to mix up our society. That's the reason why they attack Hungary so harshly, and that's the reason why my personal reputation is very bad. I'm treated like the black sheep of the European Union personally, and sometimes Hungary as well, unfortunately.
What have the effects been in Germany?
Diplomacy is...
requires
some well behavior, but it was their decision. They took the risk, and now they got what they have deserved. That's their life. I would not like to make any categories to describe what was the outcome of their decision. I only insist on that the Hungarians has the right to make our own choice.
Well, they made their bed. That's their problem, not mine.
But I mean, he's not wrong about that at all. I mean, grooming gangs.
Yep.
Grooming gangs.
But even just the most recent examples of the terrorists who came with the people, the huge spike in crime that he mentioned, all the fraud that's going on there, it's a huge mess.
I mean, I remember covering the stuff in 2016, 2017 in Germany, and the number of stories I read that were just random rapes and robberies and murders that just happened because a migrant turned up and decided he was going to do something terrible to a person who was just living their life.
I mean, I think it was the XY Eingesammelt map, or whatever it was called in German, which is just a map of migrant crime in Germany, and it was just chock-a-block. I mean, just arsons, criminally negligent arsons, rapes, murders.
Oh, yeah.
Sexually assaulting, children at swimming pools.
Yeah, well, I was about to give... there was one that always stuck with me, where, some 6-year-old boy had gone into the changing rooms, and a migrant followed him into the changing rooms and raped him in the changing rooms. And I'm thinking, man, I would have gone to jail for murder for that. I would have just strung him up.
So that's that. And that's the thing. I mean, I don't know anything about Viktor Orban, but the criticisms he has of the Western Europe are very interesting and I think valid. And it's very similar, I think, to when you literally see like Al-Assad criticizing the West. Like, of course, he's Al-Assad, but I'm not saying Viktor Orban's like Al-Assad, obviously. But
Assad's a socialist. So.
The people who aren't members of the West criticizing the West, they usually have something interesting to say, and that was definitely one of them, which is Germany done this to itself, and I'm sure they'll reap the benefits, and I'm sure they're enjoying it now. But what was the American leftist response to this evil man being interviewed? So you see the editor of Vox here. So it's a picture of Tucker, picture of Orban, and the chyron says, Viktor Orban believes in families and borders. And the editor of Vox titled this, Going Full Fash.
Okay, all right. Yeah. Fascism is when you have a border and your country's based on families.
Yeah, this wasn't the only one either. If we go to the next one, there's a CNN contributor, shared this article, Tucker Carlson has seen the future, and it's fascist. Fascist.
Okay.
Because they have a border and they say, if you come over it, we'll just put you back in Serbia. We're not giving you some detention centre to live in for the next 50 years and all the other problems that come with actually trying to get people out of the country, like in the UK, barracks.
Believe it or not, Mr. Dean, fascism is actually not border security.
I love it. It's just that.
That's
you got border security, that's fascism.
It's also not pro-family policies, incidentally. Yeah. We actually did quite a lot on fascism on lotus.com. You can go and check out our premium content. We did a book club book review on Zeev Sternhell's Neither Left Nor Right, the French fascism. I can't remember exactly the title now, but it's a really, really interesting book. And the point is, fascism is highly ideological and deeply revolutionary. And Viktor Orban, I don't know whether you noticed, seems to be anti-revolutionary. He seems very conservative, which is the opposite of being a fascist, just so you know.
There's also the idea here that the only thing wrong with the Nazis is their border policy. If you're saying that, well, they have a border, therefore they're fascists.
Yes. Nazis, big respecters of borders. Chief border respecters were the Nazis. And the Italians, in fact, big border respecters.
Respected borders like they respected women. Anyway, so let's go to the next one here. David Raboy made a post of this. So he's just like, just a reminder, they love Cuba, they love Gaza, they love China, they love South Africa and Zimbabwe, but man, do they hate Hungary. Like, it's weird, the amount of hate that they have for Hungary. I mean,
just because they're not commies.
And Viktor Orban said in his interview that he thinks this is because he says he's able to offer a successful conservative country, as in conservative morals are kept there and it works. And that's a threat to Western leftists because it means Western conservatives can point and say, that works.
Look, it's not falling apart.
Yeah.
And the leftists are like, ree.
So that's the point there. Also, David Raboy, if we go to the next one here, you'll notice he said that the same people who tell you that Viktor Orban is a fascist spent 5 years telling you that Donald Trump worked for Putin. Literally the same people.
And they also said that Trump is a fascist. So.
And if we go to the next one here, it is literally the same person. Jonathan Chayat. So first article, Tucker Carlson has seen the future and it's fascist. Second article, will Trump be meeting with his counterpart or his handler, Putin? Literally the same people.
So insane conspiracy theorists who see fascists under every rock telling us that Viktor Orban's a fascist, and then Viktor Orban's like, we're just going to have a border policy.
That's not radical or a crime or wrong.
No.
It's completely right. And he does look like a Chad on that policy.
Yes.
So just the last thing to mention is Tucker Carlson in his interview also said to Orban that you wonder if Biden is going to be kind of upset with you and your example of the border, let's say, and therefore try and do regime change. And again, the Vox editor being very upset that he would suggest.
Tucker Carlson uses a puff piece interview with Viktor Orban to suggest that Joe Biden will interfere in Orban's re-election campaign.
Yes, the United States never interfered with any foreign election
say if you're
in history.
Aaron, aren't you a leftist? don't. Oh God!
Like Glenn Greenwald is just sat there like, what is happening? What has happened, man?
yeah. I mean, has that ever happened before, Aaron? Just out of interest.
CIA didn't come out as woke like 2 months ago, did they? Anyway, but yeah, that's Tucker Carlson's Hungarian adventure, and I'm enjoying it. I'm learning some stuff there.
I'm loving the reaction to it. That's fantastic. All the leftists who are like, oh, the CIA did nothing wrong now. If you enjoyed this segment from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters, you can watch the full broadcast live every weekday at 1 p.m. UK time on lotuseaters.com.